Guess what? This year is the 50th anniversary of the movie this guy starred in right now, Blazing Saddles. Whew. He rode a blazing saddle. That was Frankie Laine. Hey, you know what? I've got an interview I did with Frankie Laine from 50 years ago. We're going to show that, plus an interview I did with you where you didn't have a pocket in your shirt. And I ended up, see this right here?
There it is right there.
That's my microphone. And I loaned him my jacket, and he's wearing a tweed jacket that you're going to see in this clip with this phone as our microphone. That's a little trick out there for all of you novice filmmakers. Everybody cares about this movie that, oh yeah, Blazing Saddles. What is the most important thing about that movie for the fans out there who love it?
Well, Mel will tell you he knows that it can never be done again. Blazing Saddles is over. But he will also tell you if it could be done again, we'd be on Blazing Saddles 8.
Well, I've watched it more than 8 times. And some of those lines in the film are part of my vocabulary for my life.
Mine too.
Well, I can imagine yours.
And a lot of people.
Yeah. It's a wonderful film, and I tell you what, it's wonderful to be standing next to this man who has brought so much entertainment to us, not just in Blazing Saddles. I Love You in Paper Moon. You worked with Bruce Boxleitner and Jim Arness in the Red River remake.
And Burt Reynolds and a whole lot of folks.
Well, Burt's one of the funniest guys I ever met. How about one Burt Reynolds story? And should we quiet down these people behind us?
Quiet's like there.
Hey, how about Burt Reynolds? How did you meet Burt?
He called me one time on the phone. I had met him in Guaymas, Mexico. And he called me about 6 months later and said, "Hey, this is Burt." And I said, "Yes." And I thought it was Burt Metcalf, who, has done a lot of stuff. And he said, "We're doing a picture in a couple of months down in Savannah, and I want you to be part of it for about 6 weeks." And I finally had to say, what Burt is this? He said, "Burt Reynolds." Oh, that Burt.
What was that film?
It was called
Gator?
Gator.
Okay, Gator. Good guys.
Gator Works Lusty. Gator.
And he directed that too. Yeah.
First directing job.
Oh my gosh, that must have been scary.
Well, he had a lot of help.
Was Hal Needham hanging around?
Oh, yeah. Hal was right there. Oh, we had a great time. I was there 6 weeks, and I actually worked about 15 days. I just played a lot of golf, sat behind the camera and learned how to make shots, how to really take a scene and turn it around and look at it from a different direction. I learned a lot from Burt, and Burt was brand new at
right. He had been observing for his whole career. What a funny man he was.
Yeah.
Well, this is a funny man too, and so get ready for some more laughs as we watch Daryle Ann Lindley, who is Slim's daughter. Big mentor to this man right here. And then we see Burton, and then from 50 years ago, me wearing my leather jacket because I love Frankie Laine so much. The Frankie Laine interview, and then we will catch you later. This man, I'm in Texas right now,
Oh,
and I'm straight, okay?
Well, I'm in San Francisco.
Dad was genuinely funny. I mean, he was a funny guy. I mean, growing up in our household, it was a laugh a minute. And my mother was completely, the opposite. Mother had this very dry sense of humor. And to see the two of them together was quite comedic. Mom used to work for Howard Hughes, and she was a mathematician.
He had no sense of humor.
No. And my mom was a mathematician, and so she did all the bookwork and everything, and Dad just made the money.
Well, that's all right.
That's all right.
Yeah. No, so how did Blazing Saddles come about?
Well, Mom always read Dad's scripts when they came to the house. The script came to the house, Mom read it, and she said to Dad, "Slim, you can't do this. You say things in here I've never heard you say before. And Dad said, don't worry, I know how to say them. So then Dad ended up going in and meeting Mel Brooks. And Mel Brooks wanted to meet him before he did the film. And Dad said, he goes in and has the interview, and it goes along. And Mel says to Slim, Slim, I want to ask you a very personal question. I hope you won't be offended if I ask you this question. And Dad went, oh, my God, he's going to ask me about my sex life? I'm going to have to lie. And so Dad said, yeah, go ahead, ask me. And he said, can you really ride a horse? Dad said, well, I don't have to lie to that one. Yes, I can. And then Mel came to Dad after they did Blazing Saddles and said, Slim, I want you in my next movie, my next Western. I want you in my next Western. And Dad said, when did you make the first one?
Well, and Mel never made a better one, And
I see Mel all the time. He goes to the racetrack, and he likes to bet the horses, and I see him all the time. So he knew I was going to be here today, and I'm going to tell him he missed a great afternoon with you people.
Thank you.
There's a lot to tell about Paper Moon. I had never been in a grade school play till I did Paper Moon. Saw an article in the Dallas paper that some big director by the name of Peter Bogdanovich, I'd never heard of, was coming to Dallas to audition people to be extras in a picture called Paper Moon. And said Ryan O'Neal was the star of the show, and I thought, boy, I might get to see Ryan O'Neal. So I went down, stood in line with 450 people, and through a series of things over the next 2 weeks, I wound up with the 6th largest part in the picture, a co-starring role, and they hauled me off to St. Joseph, Missouri, and I did Paper Moon and had the most wonderful time for a week working with great actors, actresses. It was fantastic. I was a fireman. I went back to the fire department. About 3 months later, I got a phone call at the fire station. Fire station number 39, Gilliam speaking. This boy says, hi, my name's Mel Brooks. I'm a writer, director, producer, actor, and I'm getting ready to do a big picture. Saw a rough cut of Paper Moon last night, and I want you to be in my picture. I said, thank you, Mr. Brooks. I just hung up the phone because I knew it was another fireman giving me a bad time. They'd been doing it for 3 months. But he called back, talked to my captain, got me back on the phone and wanted me to come to Hollywood to talk to him about doing this picture. He said, I don't want you to read for me. I just want you to do the part in it. And so I went out and told him no. I went out and then came back, and then got another phone call, and this guy said, hey, man, this is Richard. I said, Richard who? He said, Richard Pryor, man. And because I had met him while he was one of our writers on Blazing Saddles. And he said, we rewrote the part last night and want you to come back because it's really a great role. And come back, please, come back. So I did, and I said, now, y'all are flying me out again, first class, So I went out and told them no again because couldn't get back together on money with the casting department, Mel Brooks, and I just went back, got on a plane, went back to Dallas. Then I got a phone call from Mel, and he said, well, listen, I want you to come. I want you to talk to me. Just talk to me about money. So I sat down in front of him, and he said, how much money is it going to take for us to get you to this part? And I said, well, at the fire department, I make $12,000 a year. And I know that impressed him. And I said, I couldn't quit the fire department for any less than I'm making a whole year. And he said, well, we're going to give you 3 weeks on the picture. That's $4,000 a week. That's fine. with overtime, I had 4.5 weeks. With overtime, I made $25,000. It would have taken me over 2 years to make it in the fire department. I made a great decision.
Well, so what all the firemen say, your buddies?
They knew I was nuts. They thought I'd just gone off my rocker. I had 14 years. And as everybody else did, too. I was told by so many people. I had two people tell me, go do it, you know. And I went and did it, and I showed them.
Well, Mel must have been quite the convincer.
After I was there the second time, he called Peter Bogdanovich and told Peter that, hey, he just had to have me. They were going to rewrite the part, and he asked Peter if he would call me and go to bat for him, for Mel. And so Peter called me and said, I think that Mel's going to call you again, and if you would like to do this, I strongly suggest you do it because you can do this business. I had people that were feeding me, you know, and just building me up and saying I was going to do the right thing.
How about some more beans, Mr. Taggart? I'd say you've had enough.
Torn from the fiery pages of the mightiest annals of the West comes the supreme saga in the great tradition of frontier drama.
Francis.
Slim took me under his wing, and I don't know why or how that happened. I don't think Mel told him anything, but everybody knew that I was brand new. So I think Slim just decided he wanted to be my best friend, and he said, I do things a little different from people. Directors really want you to say the same line over and over again, going through take 1, take 2, and all that. He said, I really can't remember lines that well.
Get a hold of them bars. Keep your feet back. There ain't no call for that long. What's the matter with you?
Nothing. Just sorry the county's going to take care of him. I like to do it myself. With this. Both barrels and double on shot about waist high.
He said, I've just learned to say what comes through my mind. He said, and I think you could possibly do that too. And I have been able to do that.
What were some of the lines you came up with in Blazing Saddles that weren't in the script?
In Blazing Saddles, I didn't. I went right by what Mel wanted me to say. But, oh gosh, over the years, they've let me just say pretty much what I want to say. After about starting into the second week, you know, we had every take, you know, you'll do 10, 12 takes sometimes. Somebody was laughing through the first 7 or 8 or 9 takes, and starting in the second week, Mel came in and said, listen, what we're going to do now is we're going to laugh all we want to on the first 2 times. He said, after the first 2 times, nobody is to laugh unless it calls for a laugh in the scene. So he laid the law down, and I think he saved the film from going way over budget by doing that.
You said that Richard Pryor had picked up the phone and called you back when you were still in Texas to convince you, and he was set to do the lead. What happened there?
Well, there were 2 or 3 people at the top of Warner Brothers who did not want him. There was, you know, he hadn't done any movies, but he had a reputation already in Hollywood of not showing up and doing exactly what he wanted to do. And as far as I know, everybody wanted Richard. They all want him. But those 2 people at the top put their foot down and said, we're not having him. But for about the first 7 or 8 days, Richard was on the set. As you know, every now and then there's a star of a picture who in a few days they find out he's not really just right for this part. So I know that Richard was there, or I've been able to figure out over the years, Richard was there for the first few days, just thinking something might happen here, but it didn't. But he was so good to me, golly.
Well, you know, you talk about the stars and making stars. That film made a superstar out of Gene Wilder.
What's your name?
Well, my name is Jim, but most people call me Jim.
We didn't have a superstar in the picture. There was no superstar. Gene was just on the cusp of becoming a super, but he wasn't at that time. And there wasn't one in there. And I think, from my own thoughts, nobody's ever said this. Mel and I haven't even talked about it. But I think that was the real thing that put us over the top, because we didn't have superstars. We just had about 7 or 8 people who could really knock them out and do a great job at making a film.
Well, do your best. Now, let's see. Where were we?
Oh, Rock Ridge.
Rock Ridge. I want that land. Clumsy fool.
I'm sorry.
Wait a minute. There might be a legal precedent. Of course. Land snatching. Let's see. Land. Sea snatch.
Hello, handsome. Is that a 10-gallon hat?
David Huddleston, so many great people were in that film.
Oh, David was great. I just loved David, because we used to see each other around the country, and we would see each other at different events around the country, and he always made me feel so good, because he would introduce me to people, and he would say, I want you to meet my friend Burton Gilliam here. And he used to be a fireman. He did this, he did that, and boy, he's great. He always just built me up, made me feel so good. I love David Huddleston.
One of the world's funniest men is Mel Brooks, and in his film Blazing Saddles, which was a satire on Western and laid to rest most of the myths about Westerns, he chose a man who has sung the opening themes to many of the greatest Westerns ever made. Our guest today on Stardom, the singer behind the voice in Blazing Saddles, Frankie Laine.
Thank you.
Did you meet with Mel on that?
It was peculiar the way it happened. I was in Vegas. We had just opened at the Desert Inn, and we had an opportunity to do the Merv Griffin show. And they asked me what 2 songs I wanted to sing. So I happened to choose Cry of the Wild Goose and You're the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me. So who knew that Mel Brooks was in Los Angeles watching Merv Griffin? And when I came on to open with Cry of the Wild Goose, they hadn't yet done their theme song. So he's married to Anne Bancroft. He said, hey, that's the guy that should do our theme song. So I got off the air, and there was a call waiting for me from Mel Brooks. And I didn't know Mel Brooks. Never heard of him at that point.
You knew who he was.
I knew who he was, but I mean, I had no relationship, like, why was he calling me, in other words? So I knew he had made a record. I knew he was a funny man with the 2000-year
writer.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So he came on the phone. He said, hey, he talks real rough. He said, I know you don't have time to talk now because you got to get back to do the show, but he says, I want to talk to you about doing a theme song. I says, oh, he says, I just made a picture called Blazing Saddles. I want you to do the theme. I says, well, don't you think I ought to hear it first? And he says, oh, you'll hear it. I says, well, can you send me up a tape or a demo? And he says, yeah. I says, well, make sure that you get somebody, you know. He says, oh, I'll do the demo. He says, nobody knows it better than I. He says, I wrote it, which he did with, can't remember the composer now, but anyway, I got it, and it was bad. I mean, it was a lousy demo, but I learned the song from that demo and flew into Hollywood, did the track one afternoon in about 40 minutes. He took me to lunch and boom, sent me to the airport in a limo. I haven't seen or talked to him since.
Well, we're certainly glad you did that song, and we're especially glad you appeared on Stardom today with us, Frankie Laine.